All right, so so it's Eduardo who usually does the recording. Unless you'd rather not, like if you'd prefer not to, then you don't have to. Okay, perfect. So if you don't mind, that would be awesome. He's recording. Good, good, good. All right, so let's go ahead and let's start looking at this assignment. So before I was just talking about it, and now we can actually look it over. So we see it's called Making Decisions, and it's just something I wrote up this morning. Not terribly difficult, didn't take me very long to write up. But there still is a lot of important lessons that you can learn from it. Now, I think it's a very important thing to point out that in many fields, if you get a degree and you go into a situation where you can discuss your degree, there's not always one right answer. So let's say that you study literature and you have certain points of view about, I don't know, Shakespeare, and you can back your points of view up with readings that you've done by other experts, and then another expert on Shakespeare disagrees with you about something, and you can debate, you can make your point, and depending on how well you can discuss the issue, people will either accept your point of view or accept your point of view, and there's no actual, like, pure truth, I guess you could say, with discussing literature. I mean, if you're discussing the topic at all, then you won't be into any sort of argument or debate. With programming, are many different ways to solve problems. There's not only one way of solving a problem. There's not only one way of even analyzing the problem. But in the end, to get the program to run, there are certain things you have to abide by. And I think those things are more rigorous and more strict in programming and computer science than maybe in other fields, where maybe you can get away with, saying your opinion is this and your opinion is that. So you can have opinions about programming, but in the end, you need things to actually run, you need things to actually work, and compilers can be very unforgiving, where the compiler will just keep saying, nope, wrong, nope, wrong, nope, wrong. And you can't say, well, I disagree with the compiler. I mean, at a certain point, it's just you're not participating in the actual activity. And I think that with other fields, maybe there's more leeway than with this field. So you have to be able to get code that runs and that works in order to even just be able to join the field, right? And so when you're asked to join a position, even if you have a degree, you're going to be asked to solve problems, and this is just a requirement. I mean, that's the name of the game. So the point is, if you really want to make this your field, it helps to do as much practice as possible and join in the lessons as much as possible. So, if anybody was to think that, oh, I have a degree and it says computer science or it says CIS or whatever it says, that's the magic ticket, that's really not the case. You really also have to be able to solve problems. You have to be able to write code that compiles and runs. And the only way to get there is just by doing lots and lots of practice. I've known lots of great programmers through the years, and no matter how smart they are, they all have to put in a lot of time working with the languages and working with the compilers and just learning about the send me a message that says, oh, I can't do it, I can't. I'll try to help you, but I think that feeling of being stuck is pretty natural and pretty normal. And there's nothing really to be ashamed of with getting stuck when you're doing programming. Of course, I am here to help you. So if you send me a message, I can help you. If you put a message out to people on the Discord chat, that's good, that's healthy. And hopefully people can help without, because I'm teaching 4 classes this summer. So I actually spend many hours a week just, running these courses. And I'm not running any of them with just saying watch videos and then do exercises. Like I'm sitting here the way I'm doing with you with all the other courses. So if some other people are responding to a comment on Discord, then that's good. That's healthy. I wanted that when I was setting up Discord. But, don't just post your whole solution, right? Because I know it makes people feel good, like, oh, I've got the solution. But then that really doesn't help other people. The point is to get people to search things on Google and look things up and try to figure things out on their own. And if the solution is too easy, they didn't really learn anything. Because when you watch other people do things, that's not really learning. That's just sort of sitting back and letting things, watching. So anyways, let's jump into this problem. So it says, first you're going to ask the user for their first name. So I talked about this before. Store their name in a string variable. You decide on the variable name. Okay, so it could be first name, it could be something like that. If their name is longer than 8 letters, tell them they have a long first name. Otherwise, say nothing. All the prompts for the program must match the prompts below. So let's look at the first prompt. Enter your first name, colon. Now, I had a lot of students for the first program, the multiplication and addition program, where they were making up prompts. And they would write me messages saying, well, it's good to have prompts because it lets the user know what they're doing. Now, that may be true, but this program is being analyzed by Memer. So Memer is looking over the program, and if you change the prompt to something different, Memer is not programmed to deal with that. Memer just checks for this, enter your first name. So you have to have enter space your space first space name, no space after the colon, just like that. And then there's a new line after the colon. So being detail-oriented is important when you're programming. Now, from a philosophical point of view, someone could say, well, who cares if you prompt the user, enter your first name with the colon or without the colon? But you have to get away from that sort of argumentative nature, because that's not the way it works when a computer is analyzing your code at first. Okay? So no. That's a good question. That's an excellent question. Can we decide on what the program will say if it's longer? No, that's a great question. So scroll down to the third output, or just, look at my stream, and it says enter your first name, and I just typed out really long name, and then, yeah, exactly. It says your first name is long. Now, this is all totally made up stuff, right? Like, it's all arbitrary. Why did I pick 8 characters versus 5 or 4? It doesn't really matter. The whole point is just to see if you can ask for some data, read the data in, store it, and then use the if statement that we learned about previously. So that's the mindset you have to have, that it's being graded by a computer, so you have to abide by this. Could you guys just hear me? I'm back, right? You can hear me? Okay, because my computer's not frozen now, so that's good. Yeah, Okay, so let's see. So let me close some things to make it run better. Yes, it will require CN. And all right, so let me close all these things. Oh, I had like 20 I had 20 Word things open. So I think it's going to be running better now. All right. Yeah, that was a mistake having so many. I was grading my Java homework that I assigned people. And oops. All right. Let me start that screen up again. Okay. So applications, there we go. All right, go ahead and jump back on there for a second. Okay, so less lag now. And the issue was I had over 20 Word documents open. So I think in that case that was ruining my stream. Okay, so let's go ahead and close this, close this, close this. Go back to Memer. Okay, C++, making decisions. All right, so now we're back to where we were. So let's see. There were a few questions here. And let's see, no comments on Memer. So Damien asks, do we have to have comments on Memer? So for this particular assignment, I don't require that you have any comments, but comments are a good habit to get into. So you should write a few comments. Yes, comments are a good habit. In terms of will Memer check it for a grade? No, it won't. But it's just a good habit to get into as you're writing things that you think deserve some explanation, right? So no. Memer won't. No, Memer won't. Memer doesn't care if you enter comments. Memer doesn't care about a lot of things. Like Memer doesn't care the name of your variable. Memer doesn't care about actually whether you using namespace std or not. Memer won't care about that. Those are things, hopefully, just by doing lots of examples in class, like we do lots of REPLs and replet, that you'll see, okay, we came to some code that needs some explanation, so we just write a comment. There are probably, well, I know of some professors who basically require every line you write a comment. Every line you write a comment. I don't think I like that approach because I think it might be overkill. It might just become this like drudgery that you're just doing it out of some sort of obligation, and then maybe you'll resent comments. So I'd rather it just be something that you do to explain a bit of code that needs more explanation. So you'll come into the habit of writing comments just because they're important, rather than because you're being forced to. So hopefully that makes sense. So yeah, so the Memer assignment is very similar to the other one. For this Memer assignment, you can either complete it with replet and download the REPL, or you can just work from the Memer IDE. Now, if you're inside of replet, you can just go ahead and call your new REPL whatever you want. You can call it something like second Memer assignment, or making decisions, whatever. And you can do all of your code inside of the main.cpp. And this is kind of cool. When you're done, you can just download the code zipped up. So let me show you how you can do that. You can just click on the three dots, and let's see. Oh, there they are. Okay. So if you click on the three dots next to, on the files, what's that called? Files window. So it's next to add file and add folder. You should see 3 dots. If you click on the 3 dots, you go to download as zip. Download as zip. So let me just take a snip here. Actually, let me do a screenshot. Screenshot might be better. So let me go to a screenshot. We go in here and paste it. And you know what? I am going to have to do a snip because taking it of the wrong one. So real quick, I just go here, download a zip, download as zip. Okay, so we'll go in here from pictures, download as zip, PNG, open. Okay, so the point is, after you work with Replit, you can download your code as zip. And then, once we download our code as zip, which is just a zipped up file, if we're back here in Memer, we can click on Submit, choose the file, and let me make sure I actually did download it as zip. Yep, second Memer assignment. We just go back to our location where we downloaded it. And this one's called second Memer assignment. Then we say Submit, and say Submit. Okay, now, what do we see about my grade so far for all these test cases? What grade shows up on Memer for each one of these? Can you guys see that? Yeah, I failed. Now this is yeah, exactly, F. This is the point I really want to hammer home for students, because I get messages about this all the time. People say things like, I submitted to Memer, it didn't work. Why not? But Memer will help you to see what you did wrong. All you have to do is click on each one of these test cases. All right, so we can click on the first one, reading data. And it says, the input of the test case is Jim, that's the name, 18 is the age, and then his hobbies are fun, fun, fun. Whereas our code is just saying hello world. Why is it only saying hello world? Because that's the only thing we had inside of Memer. This is it. I mean, inside of Replit. We submitted to Replit, to Memer, the code from Replit that only says this. This was the submitted code. All right, so we're not going to get any good result from just submitting hello world, because we need a prompt that says enter your first name, enter your age, enter a hobby, enter a hobby, enter a hobby, and if they're 18 or older, we say welcome to adulthood. If their first name has more than 8 characters, we say your first name is long. If one of their hobbies is running, we say you have a healthy hobby. And then if you look at the very end, you can see exactly how your code differed from what Memer expected. And once you get all of these working, then you get a perfect score. You get 100%. Now, you only have a certain number of submissions, because what I found is if I take off the submission limit, is people will keep submitting the same assignment again and again and again. They think by resubmitting it, Memer will change its opinion. But that's not how computers work. It's never going to happen like that. So it's really quite important that you pay attention to your submissions. Now, because this assignment is getting a little more interesting in terms of how you do your if statements or how you do the variable names, Memer is going to check for plagiarism. So one person can't use the same variable name for all the 40 people enrolled in the course right now. You have to have different variable names, right? And the whole point of these assignments, the only way that this works is if you spend your time working on it, making it work, and then you get a better understanding of how to use the language. So This is going to be due by the 26th at 11:56. It's not a really super challenging problem. It shouldn't take you very long. But yeah, that's it for the assignment. Do you guys have any questions about this next assignment? Okay, well, I think it's pretty straightforward. It's nothing that's designed to trick you. So almost everybody turned in the basic math assignment and got a good score. Hopefully we have good results with making decisions. I mean, I have noticed that from the first couple weeks until now, there's a bit less engagement. Like before, there would be almost nobody absent during this class time. Now people are saying that they have this issue or that issue. I think you could treat this like a fully online class where you don't show up to in class and you just try to watch the video, but I think that's a mistake because doing these exercises during this time is much more valuable. And I really can see some people falling behind by not spending this time together. It really is too difficult of a subject to just say, oh, I'll do it later, I'll do it later, I'll do it later. So you guys are making a smart choice, being here during this time. I think it's going to really work out for you. And hopefully the people who are, following along, watching the recordings, they're going to just be able to keep up. But I think it's much better if you can set aside this time for us to all do it. Yeah, the practice exercises are the way to understand the content. Okay, William, yeah, sure. Let's have access to Freer School for about a year until I purge them, just because I teach so many classes at Miami-Dade. Eventually, the numbers get so big that I actually start running out of space on the site. So if there's anything you really like, just try to download it, and then you can save it forever. But you'll have access to Replit forever. I don't see that going away. Memer access will disappear to Memer. But yeah. Okay, very good. So let's go ahead back to Freer School. And let's go to Intro to C++ and take a look at the syllabus. And no, Solo Learn is not my site, so you'll have access to Solo Learn as long as they keep it running. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at today's date. So we have 6/22, and we see that there's a new quiz on Freer School, and that's input, output, and calculation. So let's all take a look at that quiz. Okay, so we see Chapter 3 quiz. This, you get one attempt. Just say attempt quiz now. There's just going to be some code, and it's pretty straightforward. If you were to even enter this into Replit and run it, that's fine too. I don't mind that. The only issue is I want you to spend some time thinking about this different code here. Try to guess what it's going to do. Then you could run it in Replit, and then you can see. So basically, on these quizzes, almost everyone should be getting a good grade, right? And most everyone has gotten a good grade on these quizzes. I've said before, if you have the slides up and you look at it, I don't care. There's no time limit. The quizzes are there to help you. If you're ignoring the quizzes, I'm not going to go back and reopen them. The whole point is you're here in class, you're doing the quizzes, and there have been people who haven't been doing the quizzes. So to get a 0 on something that's so straightforward is really a shame. But that's part of following along. Now, at the end of the semester, I'm going to get emails from people. Can you reopen quiz 1 through 10? Can you reopen Memer assignment 1 through 20? That's impossible. I can't do that because it's just too time consuming for me. And the whole point is we're doing this in lockstep where you're learning something, you're doing something. You're learning something, you're doing something. It's just impossible to think you can just do everything at the last minute, and it's too much work for me to just reopen everything. So it takes time to go in and just configure these things. So make sure that you are following along, doing these things as we open them up. Okay, so going back to the syllabus, we can see that we're covering today some new material, of course. Textbook 4.7 through 4.15. So let's now go to chapter 4 slides. And let's go to 4.7. Okay, flags. A flag is a variable that signals a condition. So it's usually implemented as a Bool variable. It's either true or it's false. Also be an integer where 0 is considered and any 0 value considered true. So as with other variable functions, it has to be assigned an initial value before it is used. Okay, so still lag. So this might be Discord because I'm not seeing any lag on my computer. Let's see. Well, if it keeps breaking up, close voice channel and then re-enter it, and then maybe that'll fix it. All right, so a flag might be used if you are checking if a certain condition has been met. It might be to leave. It might be to leave function. There are lots of different issues that can cause that you can use a flag for. Logical operators. Okay, these are really, really useful. If you want two conditions inside your if statement, you can use and, or even not. So let's see what these mean, or even some combination of them. My screen is not sharing. Okay, so that's definitely, okay, so this is a Discord issue. So I'm just going to leave the, okay, some people do see my screen and some people don't. All right, how many people don't see my screen? Okay, so yeah, it's just a slide on the PowerPoint. It just says logical operators on top. Okay, so it still is in flags. Okay, so then, so for one student, it is lagging on flags. Okay, so no, it is on logical operators. All right, so as long as you see logical operators, then you're good. Okay, so you exited the stream and came back into the stream, and now it's working. Okay, communication is laggy, but PowerPoint, well, shame. I can check, I can a speed test. Let's see how fast my internet speed is. So we'll go here. And see, I'm getting a really good download speed. So it's about 55 megabits per second download. Okay, my upload is bad. Well, no, it's not that bad. My upload is okay. So it's 8 megabits per second upload. So it should be good, and I'm not really running a lot on my computer now. Yeah, it could be. If I look at my task manager, let's see. Yeah, it seems pretty reasonable. My CPU memory, everything's less than a third, so it seems pretty good. It's not like when OBS was running. When I used to run OBS was bad. Now seems to be not too taxing on my system. All right, so we have some questions here. We'll just wait a minute. I cut off every other word for me, but it is not constant. Well, that's not good if I'm cutting off every other word, but I'm not quite sure. So other people, it's working fine. So that's the other issue. It might be on your end. It might be on your end. So why is the upload speed always slower than the download? I think that probably would have to do with the ISP, how they set it up. But really, the technical answer, I don't know. I think most people need more download than upload because most people are consuming content, creating it. Right now, I'm up my data from my computer to your computers, but usually most people in my neighborhood are probably just right now watching Netflix. And not that there's anything wrong with that, it's just the reality of... Well, I mean, I'd have to pay for it. I'm sure I'd have to pay for it. So I use Comcast Business because I actually did used to run a online store quite a few years ago. So I tried for a little while hosting it from my house, but hosting it was really a waste of money because the electricity costs were just so much, and hosting just kept getting cheaper and cheaper and cheaper. And today, practically nobody is going to host from their house. So, kind of works out that I'm now teaching from home. I'm working Miami-Dade from home using Comcast. So, I one of the things of having Comcast Business over residential is when you call the tech support with Comcast Business, they usually answer it like on really, and they seem really good technicians. So I think it probably would be cheaper if I had just regular Xfinity, not Comcast Business. My speed is not tremendously better. You can good speeds with Xfinity, but I think the tech support better. I don't know. I guess this is an important discussion to have when you're teaching a technology class, and I mean, we're doing this because of the coronavirus. I think just looking at numbers for people, like, first of all, Florida's having a terrible time with our case numbers are rising, but the deaths are not rising. So it looks like the approach we're taking is just let all the young people get it, and then hopefully we'll get herd immunity. I guess I'm in the middle between young and old, so maybe it's okay if I get it. I don't know. I don't want to get coronavirus, but it looks like the case numbers are rising. Maybe we should open up again. I think maybe we should open up again. I don't know. But I know if people are in their 60s, 70s, they should not get it. I mean, elderly people should not be getting this. If you're going to a party and then you're going to hang out with your grandparents, that's crazy. Like, you should definitely not do that. If you go to a party and you get it, probably you'll be okay. But, I mean, You not go around elderly people if you're hanging around with lots of people. But, we're just talking about this because the question is, how do we read in so, and I like teaching in-person classes. I've actually liked using Discord too. It hasn't been too bad. I think there's been good engagement, but yeah. But people probably shouldn't be in the classroom. Yeah, if you hate getting colds, Corona is not fun. I mean, I'm talking about it killing you. I'm not talking about it being fun. it's a serious disease. I mean, I see people online calling it a hoax. I don't know how they can call it a hoax. So some people in Mexico. So the authorities are closing streets, guarding business. Wow, yeah, that's way different from Florida. In Florida, I'm seeing on the local news people throwing gigantic parties, and it's way different. um, you work with the elderly. Your babies are going through it, not seeing their family. Yeah, exactly. It's very hard on people. It's big sacrifices are happening right now. Yeah, it seemed like Floridians just forgot about COVID, but I don't know. This whole discussion just came about thinking about MDC in the fall, if we're going to reopen or not. The big change is our numbers are going way up. Our deaths are not going up because more young people are getting it. Wow, yeah, being in a retirement home with coronavirus, that's scary. That's really scary. Was that in Florida, Lauren? Wow, in Florida. Wow, so they're not doing good checking as people are going in. Scary. Well, yeah, that is a good point. I mean, you can't be in quarantine forever. I'm not blaming people going out. I've gone out. I've done things. So I've certainly not been staying at home completely. I've gone out myself, but I think there's probably a difference in like going ways versus other. But yeah, I would agree. You can't stay in lockdown forever. So that's yes, that is a good point. And there are always different trade-offs you make in situations like this. They reopened the COVID floor. Well, the numbers are going up, so that's reality. Anyways, I guess we can move on back to logical operators, but certainly to occasionally touch on something, an issue like that. All right, so two ampersands, I should say, means and. So this is a relational expression that means both have to be true. So what's on the left, what's on the right? Now, these two pipes, this is or. And this means either the left side is true or the right side is true, one or the other. And the not, this is the exclamation point, this means it will reverse an expression. So true becomes false, and false becomes true. Now, looking at this probably won't be very helpful, but if we see an action, then we can make more sense of it. So now we're going to give x the value of 12, y the value of 5, z the value of negative 4. Let's compare 12 and 5. Well, x is bigger than y. 12 is bigger than 5. So this part is true. The left side is true. Now we see two ampersands. This means and. So both the left and the right Can you hear me now? Okay, so it's just a matter with Discord. Perfect. Discord was saying, I don't know, Discord is having troubles now. There's no troubles. So basically, let me try to explain that again. The left side of the first line is true inside the table, and the right side of this first line in the table is true. That means the whole line is true. Okay? Now let's look at the second one. Is 12 larger than 5? Yes, that's true. Is -4 larger than 5? No, -4 is not... Oh, you're right. I forgot the screen share. Thanks. All right, perfect. So let's look at line 2. We have, is 12 greater than 5? Yes. Is -4 greater than 5? No, that's false. So both sides have to be true for that and to work. Now let's look at the or. Is 12 less than or equal to 5? No, excuse me. Is 12 less than or equal to -4? No, that's false. So we're on line 3 inside the table. Or is 5 equal to -4? No, that's false also. If they're both false, the or is false. Okay? If both are false in an or statement, the statement is false. Now, let's look at the next or. So we're on line 4 in the table. Is 12 less than or equal to -4? No, that's false. Or is y not equal to z? Well, y is 5 and z is -4. Is 5 not equal to -4? Yes, that's true. They are not equal to each other. So because that's true, the whole or statement is true. Now, for some of you, you may need to spend some time on this slide, maybe making flashcards, rewriting it, typing it in to practice it, but it's a super important concept, how an if statement works with an and or an or. All right, let's look at the last line in the table. So we have 12 greater than or equal to -4. Well, that's true, right? X is greater than or equal to -4. So that's true. But if you see on the right, it's false because the not reverses it. All right, so the question is, what can I use the not have on a program? The one that turns out to be false and vice versa. That turns out the true to be vice versa. Okay, so let's see. Let's open that up to the class. Can anyone think of any examples when the logical not would be useful? So even if you've just been introduced to this concept, just take a minute to think about it and see if you can think of any examples when the logical not would be useful. When the value of the variable changes, well, let's see. If a variable changes, you want to use logical not to... Alejandro, try to think, maybe flesh out the example a little bit. Try to write a little more. And then maybe I'll understand. Okay, something kind of similar to an else statement. So we're saying, if this, if not this, okay, I can see the logic of that. Okay, so for instance, you have x equals 10, and then later you change the value, you change x to be 15. Oh, I see what you're saying. So you want to see if it's not equal to 10. Oh yeah, okay, yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah, that's good. I like that. Okay, so we have another idea. Yes, I like that. All the variables in a range with one exception. Yes, that's really good. I do like that. So it can be anything from 10 through 15. 10 through 15 except 12. That's good too. I like that. All right, perfect. So I think what we should do is we should jump in and start doing some REPLs. So let's all go back to the site, Replit, new REPL, C++, and let's call this and or not practice, C++. So if you're just following along, I called it and or not practice, C++. You can name it whatever you want. That's not super important. And let's go ahead and start making some variables. We can say int I equals 2, j equals 3, and I don't know, k equals 4. All right, so now we're going to say if I is greater than 2, or j is greater than 2, then print out, and this time we'll just put in here at the top using std cout. So we can just say cout correct, and then we can say else cout incorrect. Okay, so before I run this, what do you think is going to display? Do you think it's going to say correct or incorrect? Can you guys see the stream? Okay, so we have some guesses for correct. And somebody says incorrect. And somebody else says incorrect. So that's good. We have two different competing ideas. So, Crystal, why do you think it's going to say incorrect? Ah, that's an or statement. Oh, I see. So the screen sharing, the pixels are a little bit hard to make out. Okay. So yeah, it is an or statement. All right, so we run it. It does say correct. All right. So let's go ahead and add this in here to our code review here. Okay. Now, you'll notice you can have using std cout. It makes it a little easier, so you can just use the cout, and then you don't have to write std cout again and again. So that's one option that you can do. So here's what I would like for you to do. I would like for you to ask the user to enter in the value of I and j. Okay. See if I is greater than 10 and j is greater than 10. If both are larger than 10, display a message, otherwise display nothing. Okay, so you're going to have a few things. So make a prompt of your own choosing to enter the value in I and J. Make up the message on your own and use an and statement in your code. Okay, so you want to use an and statement in your code. Okay, so let's see if we can do this within the next 10 minutes. So everyone show your REPL at 148. Okay? So this is the participation that I was talking about that's so valuable. All right? Any questions about what this is going to be doing? Okay, so let's all share in 10 minutes. Okay, so let's see. Let's go ahead and take a look at the instructions. So the instructions say to ask the user to enter in the value of I and j. So unfortunately, the first one that I clicked on just assigned the value of I and j, and yeah, that's not good. So let's try the next one and see what it looks like. But the and was correct in that, so that's good. All right, so let's look here. So we have on this one, okay, the prompt says enter a number, and then you read it into the number I, and then enter another, and you read it into the number j. And then we have if I is greater than 10 and j is greater than 10, then you say, I don't know what I'm supposed to say. So if we look here at the code, we can see both I has to be greater than 10 and j has to be greater than 10. So let's go ahead and run it. And if I say I is 10 and j is 10, nothing prints. It's good. Now let's try it with I is 11 and j is 10, and we see nothing because they both have to be greater than 10. So we can say I is 11, j is 11. I don't know what I'm supposed to say. Okay? So these examples may not seem very challenging, right? Like you can say, oh, how to use an and, no big deal. But by doing them again and again and again, you're going to remember how to use the and statement. All right, let's continue on with the slides. Okay, so we can use the logical and. All right, so some people are fixing it, putting it in. Oh, somebody has a question. Great. Yes, let's check on this. That's excellent. That's actually the best use of time when people have trouble getting it to work. So we see here, Crystal writes, I don't know what I'm doing wrong. Okay, so she has enter the value of I, C into I. Ah, okay. So we have if I is greater than 10 and j is greater than 10, I mean, Chris, I'm not sure I posted the right one. Yeah, somehow Steven's got put in there, and his looks good. All right, so yeah, post what's wrong. Mitchell, you can post yours that's wrong too. And we can. So Crystal has. Okay, Crystal has enter a number for I, read it into I. Enter a number for j, read it into j. If I is greater than 10, oh, okay, so you have a space in between the and. That might be the problem. Yeah, that's definitely the problem. That's a case where white space really matters. All right. The other problem is you've got the C out. That's on line 8, line 5. Oh, yeah. You've got using for some reason in front of that. Okay, and then you've got C out. Okay, STD. Okay. All right, so if we say 1111, correct. All right, so Crystal, yeah, take a look at that. And let's see. So Mitchell also posted something, so we can go ahead and check here. So let's make a new REPL and call it Mitchell code. All right, so it says enter a value for I, 11, enter a value for J, and you say that's logical. Okay. Then let's try 10 and 10. I mean, Mitchell, yours seems to be working. So, okay, here's the thing. Like, if you just put CN without the STD, you need to have using STD CN or using STD Cout, right, at the top. So, like, let's look at Mitchell's, for example. I'm still streaming here. We can say using STD, and this way we're not using the namespace standard, we're just using one particular one. Then we could say Cout, and then we could have using STD CN, then we have CN, and CN, and it still runs. All right, so check this out. But yours seemed good. I mean, didn't seem like any problem. Check this out to see how to use using STD Cout. So if that was the question. Okay. So let's see. Any other questions about this example before we move on? Yeah, exactly. If you put using STD : CN, you can just say CN. So if your program's getting really long, that's an option. No, it's no worries, no worries. I actually like when people type out their questions, so if people wanted to go back later and read through them, the STD : makes the code look cooler. Yeah, it makes it look more complex, that's true. So, like I had been reading that using namespace STD is not a good approach. I'm guessing this is a good compromise, but if you wanted to just keep using STD for each thing, that's fine too. Like, I'm just showing you different ways of doing it. That's kind of the main point. All right, very good. Got a few more comments. Okay, no. So the preference is not to use namespace standard. So let's look this up. Why is using? All right. So let's look here. Let's look at Geeks for Geeks. Okay. So let's actually go to a website that has some authority, and it says the statement using namespace STD is generally considered bad practice. The alternative to this statement is to specify the namespace to which the identifier belongs using the scope operator each time we declare a type. Although using the statement saves us from typing STD : whenever we wish to access a class or type defined in the std namespace, it imports the entirety of the std namespace into the current namespace of the program. Let us take a few examples to understand why this might not be such a good thing. Let's say that we wish to use the cout from the std namespace. So we write include IOStream using namespace std cout something to display. Now, at a later stage of development, we wish to use another version of cout that is custom implemented in some library called foo, for example. So we include foo.h. And now when we say cout something to display, look, there's ambiguity. To which library does cout point to? Now, in our case, whether an instructor used using namespace std throughout the course or not, it doesn't really matter too much. Maybe it's giving people a bad habit. So because I read things like this, I decided to try to emphasize not using it. REPL, which is the IDE that we're using throughout the course, it doesn't give you using namespace std, so that's why I decided not to use it. Now, the slides that I have do have using namespace std, so hopefully you're able to identify what it means and understand what this whole discussion is about. But when we're writing the code, the idea is we're either saying std : cout, or maybe say using just that one particular item if our program is getting a little long, right? Like we're saying using std : cn. So that way we're not using the whole namespace standard, just one particular thing. In the end, that's the link, and I think let's move on from that discussion. Okay, so let's go ahead and see this example here. If you're employed and you're a recent grad, you qualify for this loan. So we say if employed equals y and recent grad equals y, say you qualify for the special interest rate. Otherwise, you must be employed and have graduated from college in the past 2 years to qualify. Okay, so it's if these two conditions are met, then you get the interest rate. Otherwise, no, you don't get it. Okay, if your income is greater than the minimum income, or your years are greater than the minimum years, then you qualify. Otherwise, tell them you have to earn a certain income or been employed for a certain number of years. So just more business logic. All right, you can use the logical not in this example. We can say if your income is greater than or equal to the minimum income, or your years are greater than the min years, reverse it with logical not, and then say you must earn at least this much money or have been employed for this many years. So I guess the best way that I could say using the logical not is to just try to describe the problem in the most logical possible way you can. So try to take the problem from reality, from the game, from whatever you're working on, and to translate it into code. Logical not can help you sometimes organize your code in such a way that it maps the problem to the code in an easier way. Okay, so logical not has the highest precedence. Not has the highest precedence, followed by and, then or. If the value of an expression can be determined by evaluating just the sub-expression on the left side of a logical operator, then the sub-expression on the right side will not be evaluated. That's a short circuit evaluation. Okay, so that means if you're checking and the left side isn't true, you just break out. You don't even check the right side. Okay, checking numeric ranges with logical operators. So we can see if the grade is greater than or equal to 0 and the grade is less than or equal to 100, print out valid grade. You can also test to see if the value falls outside of a range. You can say if the grade is less than or equal to 0, or the grade is greater than or equal to 100, say invalid grade. Now, that's assuming that you can't get a 0 or 100, which isn't usually the case with grades. All right, but maybe that's possible. Maybe the instructor says you get at least 1 point for putting your name, and I don't know, the instructor makes it so hard nobody ever makes 100. Whatever. All right, you can't use mathematical notation. You can't say if 0 is less than or equal to grade, or grade is less than or equal to 100. This doesn't work. You have to lay it out explicitly. Now, with Python, this would work. You could do this with Python, but not C++. Menus. Menu-driven programs are when program execution is controlled by the user selecting from a list of actions. So the menu is a list of choices on the screen. So you can implement a menu using an if-else, if statements. So what do? You display a list of numbered or lettered choices for actions. Prompt the user to make a selection, then test the user's selection in the expression. If a match, then execute the code for action. If not, then go on to the next expression. All right, validating user input. So we have to inspect to see if the input data is acceptable. Bad output will be produced from bad input. So there's a saying, garbage in, garbage out. You can perform various tests. You can test for range, reasonableness, valid menu choice, or divide by 0. So let's say that we're entering in scores. All right, if the test score is greater than or equal to the min score, and the test score is less than or equal to the max score, go ahead and figure out what the grade is. Otherwise, you see on line 3, display that an invalid score was entered. So you can't deal with a negative score in tests. Comparing characters and strings. So characters are compared using their ASCII values. So A, capital A, is going to be less than capital B. So the ASCII value of A, 65, is less than the ASCII value of B. So let's go ahead and look up an ASCII table and check it out. Okay. So go ahead and just click on that link that I posted into Discord, and somebody just type out what is the ASCII value of capital T. What is the ASCII value of T? It's a lot of numbers, but somebody read through the chart and tell me, what's the ASCII value of T? It might take a little while for you to open up the link and go to it. Okay, somebody typed out 84. And if we saw that capital A was 65, well, that seems logical because A is at the beginning and T is toward the end. I mean, seems right. I don't have it memorized, but nobody's saying it's not, so very good. Clicked on the link, and there we go. Okay. All right. The numbers have their own ASCII value. Lowercase letters have higher ASCII codes than uppercase letters, so lowercase a is greater than capital Z. All right, so get a character from the user. We can use cin.get and then determine if the user entered a number, a digit, an uppercase letter, a lowercase letter, or whether it's not a digit or a letter. All right, so cin.get. What is cin.get? Who can just type out an explanation? What is cin.get? Because I'm pretty sure we covered this before. Okay, so somebody says like picking any character. Well, yeah, Crystal's on the right path. cn.get is just for reading in a single character. So for the full input of a line, you would use getLine. All right, good. So strings are compared using their ASCII values. So we can have string name 1 equals Mary, string name 2 equals Mark, and all the characters must match before they are equal, right? So Mary will not equal to Mark. You have to have Mary and Mary for them to be equal. So determine and display the correct price. If part num equals S-29A, the price is a certain amount. Otherwise, the price is a certain amount. Otherwise, it's not a valid part number. The conditional operator. Okay, I believe... Okay, so I don't know if we talked about this in this class or in another class. I think it might have been in this class because I think we had a student who was using this in their examples, right? Didn't we have somebody who was making really short code with the conditional operator? Yeah, and it was Josh. Right, so Joshua was using this, and I think that sort of did introduce this a little bit. But now we can talk about it in a little more detail. So, if x is less than 0, all right, if that is true, then we are going to go to what's after the question mark. So then y is equal to 10. But if x is not less than 0, if that's false, then we go to z is equal to 20. So this is just another way of writing if-else. Some people really love this. I mean, I have students who will have nested ternary operators. Here they're called conditional operators, just on and on and on, and they love them. They hate writing out if-else. Personally, I probably don't use it that often. Occasionally I might use it, but you can use either way, right? Occasionally it does look really nice. I don't know why sometimes it works for me and sometimes it doesn't, like in terms of why I reach for it, but some people love it. Like they see this and they just love using it, and that's just like a personal preference. But it's definitely important to know, so when you can read through people's code, you know what is, what it's doing. So Joshua says he likes using it, and that's good. That's good. All right, so the value of a conditional expression is the value of the second expression if the first expression is true, or the value of the third expression if the first expression is false. So you may need to use parentheses in an expression due to the precedence of a conditional operator. So here we see an example where we're determining how much money to charge for consulting. So this consultant charges $50 an hour, but there's a minimum of 5 hours. So if they don't use all 5 hours, they're still getting their $250. There's no way this consultant will work for less than $250. And that kind of makes sense, because a consultant who's considered an expert is not going to be working for free. There's just no way. All right, so let's look. The pay rate is $50 an hour. The minimum hours is 5. And then we have hours and charges. So how many hours were worked? Look here. If the hours is less than the min hours, then just set the min hours to be 5. Okay, so what does that mean? Hours equals the result of this conditional. So if this is true, if hours is less than min hours, which is 5, then we set hours to be equal to 5. Otherwise, they have to get paid for their extra work. So if they worked 8 hours, you don't want to be setting their hours to be 5. They lose out on the pay for the other 3 hours. That's the important line on line 20. And then we're just going to display the charges by doing pay rate times hours. Pretty straightforward. Now, on to the switch statement. We're going to have some fun with the switch statement before we leave today. So the switch statement is used to select among statements from several alternatives. In some cases, it can be used instead of if-else-if statements. All right, so how does it work? We have switch and then an expression. Case, case, case. You go through and you put all the cases. Switch statements tend to be used a lot with menus. Switch with menus. So we'll do some practice menus today where we can ask for input and then we can use the switch statement to read it in. So let's see an example here. We've got a character for the choice, enter A, B, or C, and then we're going to switch based on the choice. So inside of the parentheses, we put the choice. Now, we are going to have case capital A, you entered A, case B, you entered B, case C, you entered C. Notice there is a default. The default is you didn't enter any of them, right? None of them were entered. So let's go ahead now to Replit, and let's start a new REPL, and let's call it switch practice. And because everybody in here is a student, let's go ahead and ask for the grade you got in C++. So let's say, well, let's use 1060, CGS 1060. Enter the grade you received for CGS 1060. So that was the Excel, Access, Word, PowerPoint class that you took probably before this. All right. So now we're just going to store it inside of a character. So we'll say char grade. And then we can just use cn.get. So we can say grade, we'll say cn.get. Then we have to put the std in the beginning. And we'll just put it inside of grade. So we'll say grade equals streaming is paused. Okay, that's strange. Let's see. So this is just another Discord. So you guys cannot see it. You can't see my REPL. Now you see it. Okay. Okay, so perfect. So that's just a Discord streaming thing. At the end of each Discord stream, they ask me, was this a good stream or a bad stream? And, you know, I try to remember if it was good or bad. This time they'll get it's a bad. So we're going to now put here, we're going to now put a switch statement. So we're going to say switch, and we're going to switch based off of the grade. Okay? So we're going to switch based off of the grade. So look back here. You see here how we have the switch first? Then we're going to put whatever we're switching based off of inside the parentheses. So we put parentheses, grade. All right? So this is the important syntax. We have to go like this. Now, we're going to go ahead and we're going to put the different cases. If you made an A in your CGS 1060 class, we'll just print out great job. And then we'll put a \n. Okay, and now we need a break. And then we're going to say case B is going to be std cout. We'll say okay, or we'll say good job. And then we're going to say break, because we have to break out of this case. And then we're going to say case C is going to be okay job. And then they lose the exclamation point. And we say break. And then we're going to have case D. Then we'll say poor job. And we say break. And then we're going to say case F is terrible job. Because to fail 1060, that's not good. And then we say break. And then we'll say the default is going to be, default is invalid grade. Okay, so let's go ahead and run this and see what we get. So it says, enter the grade you received for CGS 1060. Now, I don't like that it's putting that as a question mark, because it's not a question, it's just a prompt. Enter the grade you received for CGS 1060. Then I'm going to say the student got an A. Okay, great job. Then let's try to enter a B. Good job. And then we'll try a F. Terrible job. And we'll say they got a Q, and that's an invalid grade. Okay, so the point of this, let me just put this code here. The point of this is to read things in a little bit neater than the if, else if, because we could do this with if, else if, but a lot of people seem to think the switch statements are neater, especially for menus. So now let's go ahead and read through this and see what sort of problems do you guys have with this, or what questions do you have? Not problems. What questions do you have with the switch statement? So the break is in there because if we were dealing with, I don't know, if we were dealing with another type of problem where more than one case might be applicable, then the break will help us to stop once we get to the condition that we've met. All right, well, let's continue with the slides, and then we can think of a good example for you to do. All right, so first of all, the expression has to be an integer variable or an expression that evaluates to an integer variable. And then expression 1 through n must be constant integer expressions or literals. They have to be unique on the switch statement. And then default is optional but recommended. So how does it work? Well, the expression is evaluated. Then the value of the expression is compared from 1 through n. And if the expression matches any value, the program branches to the statement following that position and continues to the end of the switch. If no matching value is found, the program branches to the statement after default. Okay, so break is used to exit out of a switch statement. If it's left out, the program falls through the remaining statements in the switch statement. All right, so look here at this example. We've got an example for a company that makes TVs. So our TVs come in 3 models, 100, 200, and 300. What do you want? So we switch based on the model number. If they put 300, they get all the features. If they put 200, they get 2 of the features. If they pick 100, they only get 1 feature. Or else say they can only pick 100, 200, or 300. But you'll see that it falls through. There are no break statements inside of this switch statement. Break is only optional if you want it. Now, usually you're probably going to want it. In this case, you don't want the break. So you don't put the break in. And if someone types 300, they get all 3 features in their TV. So we can see it running through. So the switch statement is a natural choice for a menu-driven program where you display the menu, then you get the user's menu selection, see the user input as expression in the switch statement, then you use the menu choices as case statements. Okay, so this will be the last slide, the last couple slides, then we'll do some examples in Replit. The scope of a variable is the block in which it is defined, from the point of definition to the end of the block. So usually you define your variables at the beginning of the function. it's a good idea to define them close to the first use. So here we see if the income is greater than or equal to the minimum income, read in how many years have you been on your current job. So you make a variable years, read it in. Then you see if you qualify. All right? So we don't even care about the years they've worked if they don't have the minimum income. Variables defined inside the curly brace have local or block scope. When inside a block within another block, you can define variables with the same name as the outer block, but this isn't a good idea, right? Because then you're going to be shadowing your variables, not smart. We see two variable name, number. So let's look. We have int number inside of the main. And then inside of our if statement, we've got an int number. So we have another variable named number. Not a good idea to do that. You're going to be getting yourself really confused, even if the compiler will allow it. All right, great. Let's go ahead back to Replit. Let's make a new REPL, and let's call on somebody. Give me an example of a small business. So last time we did some scientific examples. This time let's do, what's a type of small business somebody could run? A bakery, perfect. Okay, a bakery is perfect. We use a bakery. All right, so for thousands of years, people have had bakeries. Now is no different. So we'll call this bakery menu program. Bakery menu program. Okay. You guys can't see my REPL? Now you can. Okay. I think I see the problem. I have to like click again on the tabs. So there we go. All right. So let's think about what we can possibly sell at this bakery. So bakeries can sell a loaf of bread. So we'll say loaf of bread. We'll say a pastry, and we'll say they also offer one more thing. Gosh, I don't know. A cake. Bakery can sell a cake. Okay, so they have a loaf of bread, a pastry, and a cake. So what you're going to do is you're going to ask the user if they want to purchase a loaf of bread, and they enter B. Enter B for the bread. Okay, the bread costs $2.99 per loaf. All right, then we're going to say pastry, enter P for pastry, and a pastry costs, so we're going to say enter C for cake, and the cake is expensive, it's $49.99. So cake costs $49.99. Any other input is unacceptable. Okay, tell the user. So we'll just make up the prompts here. So the prompts will be enter B to purchase a loaf of bread. Okay. And we'll have here string prompt for bread. And we'll just separate that with this And then we'll have std string prompt for pastry. Am I spelling that wrong? I think I might be. Pastry. Yeah, I'm spelling that way wrong. That's bad. I'm like sounding it out. But it's good I caught the mistake. Equals enter P to purchase a pastry. Okay, and then we'll have here std string prompt cake equals enter C to purchase a cake. Okay, and what you're going to do, let me just copy this code into Discord. What you're going to do is you're going to design a menu system to ask the user for this, ask the user, and then within the switch statement, tell the user how much the item costs. Okay? Ask the user. So what do you want? Do you want loaf of bread? They have to do a capital B. All right? So only check to see if they do a capital B. Now, if you're advanced, you can check lowercase b as well. Pretty much, that's the way you should think of these exercises. If you can add more features, that's great. Go ahead, add more features. Make a full-fledged cake program during the time that we're working through this, right? A whole bakery program. But I like to have like a minimum number of things to do that I'd like everybody to try to accomplish. Now, some of you, probably most of you, have never seen a switch statement before. So the idea is you can look at the switch statement above and then modify your switch statement based on that. Now, what's the first case in this example? So let's just do that together. What's the first case in this example? Who can? Yeah, exactly. Bread. Exactly, for bread. B for bread. All right? So B for bread. And then the next case is going to be P for pastry, C for cake. Now, this isn't super hard, this example, but I guarantee just doing it, if this is your first time making a switch statement, you might come across, you might not do something right. So I really want everyone to do this. And this will be the example. This is how I will take attendance with this example, with this REPL. And the way attendance works is I'm doing attendance based on different things. Like one time I did attendance, did you make an account on Freer School? Another time I did attendance, did you make an account on Memer? Many times I just sit here and I do attendance. Have you waited until the end of class? Have you done these examples? And then did you post this last example? Now, the only way you really get removed from a class is if you don't do anything. Like if you never participate, then you just have to be withdrawn. There's no Freer School, you're not doing anything on Memer, you're not doing it. You're just, like you're signed up for a C++ class, but there's no communication. So I got messages from people saying, oh, I missed a class, don't withdraw me. I'm not going to withdraw you from missing a class. Like if you don't do this example, I'm not going to withdraw you. But if it goes weeks with no contact and no nothing, then that's just like you've given up and then you're just not part of the class anymore. So I really want everybody to be doing these examples, but if you're watching this now like through the video and you're not doing it live, that's fine. It's not the end of the world. If you wanted, you could just send me your switch statement in a message, but it's better to do it before you see everybody else's answers, okay? So you get the idea how attendance works. This attendance is just to make sure you're following along with the course somewhat. It's not that, oh, you missed posting, you're getting withdrawn. That's ridiculous. All right, so I do want everybody to post this now, but if your internet goes down in the next 20 minutes and you can't, that's fine. That's understandable. So everybody clear on this? And as I'll say, just as soon as you finish it, you can go ahead and post it, and then that will be your attendance. All right? So this is the last exercise of the day. Any overall questions on what we're doing here? Yeah, stop recording now because there's no new lessons. Thank you for asking.